Hey everyone, welcome back to Young Constitutionalists. We appreciate your patience with our lack of videos lately, but we're going to get back into it. Today I'd like to discuss abortion, and not only just here in the United States, but across the world, but primarily here in the United States. First of all, how did abortion originate here in America? Well, there was the famous Roe versus Wade case, which, as many of you remember, happened back in 1973. The Supreme Court decided that the 45 states that made it a criminal offense to abort a baby, other than for any other reason besides saving the life of the mother, was a crime. Now, first of all, let's talk about the 10th Amendment here. The 10th Amendment, which reserves all powers not granted to the federal government to the state governments, is clearly being violated by this case because 45 states made it a criminal offense to commit an abortion, and these 45 states then had to comply with the federal government's rule saying that abortions had to be legal. Well, the Roe versus Wade, Jane Roe, who was actually named Norma McCorvey, she was a feminist, but she did not believe in abortion necessarily. She didn't want an abortion. She was filing for a divorce. A feminist attorney then took advantage of her and turned it into an abortion case, and hence we have legal abortion today. Norma McCorvey today is strongly against Planned Parenthood and strongly against abortion. She would love to see it brought to an end. And she is currently a Catholic, and believes it's morally wrong. Well, let's talk about some numbers here. Abortions in the United States since 1973 were about 60.3 million here in the United States at 11:42 p.m. Central Daylight Time on April 9th, 2018. Abortions since 1980 worldwide have been over 1.5 billion. Again, pulled on April 9th. An estimate shows that there are roughly 3,288 abortions per day in the United States alone. And these statistics don't even include the millions of babies who are brutally murdered by chemical abortions, which are actually a greater percentage of abortions in the United States and worldwide. The Pharmacists for Life organization estimates that there have been approximately 250 million chemical abortions in the U.S. since 1973. Now note that only 60 million were killed through surgical abortions. So there's a far greater percentage of babies who were murdered with chemicals. Let's talk about point number one, though. I have 3 points: the moral issue, the biological issue, and the political issues. So let's talk about the moral issue first. First of all, you can only agree that abortion is wrong if you believe it's a moral issue. Now, okay, abortion is self-centered and irresponsible. Abortion is essentially two people who were unable to keep themselves from having sex when they weren't supposed to, or weren't ready to have a child. And in all technicality, sex is to reproduce. That's what it's for, biological purposes. Male and female exchange chromosomes and create offspring. That's essentially what it's for, if you're only looking at the biological aspect. So if you engage in this activity and you don't expect to have offspring, well, you're being irresponsible. And then murdering your offspring just because you don't want them is clearly selfish. I hope you would agree. Abortion is clearly murder. Now, it's not about controlling your own body. It's killing another human being. So you don't have the right. It's not her choice or her body. It's someone else's body that you are affecting. You're murdering someone who hasn't even been born yet. Let's talk about point number 2, the biological issue. Well, first of all, if you don't believe infants are living, think again. If you know the 4 criteria for life, which, I suck at biology, many of us do, but these 4 criteria are pretty easy to understand. First of all, does the fetus contain DNA? Yes, it does. That's the first criterion. Let's talk about the ability to extract energy from its surroundings and convert it into energy that sustains it. Again, a fetus can do that. The ability to reproduce. Yes, again. Now you may think, well, okay, obviously an infant can't reproduce when it's in the womb. It can't. It's not even physically able to until it reaches puberty. Well, the cells inside the fetus reproduce faster than they do in any other stage of life. So that is how a fetus reproduces. Same thing with mules. If we said mules, since they are sterile, they can't reproduce, are therefore not living, well, that's clearly not true. The mule is living. Then finally, the fourth criterion for life is the ability to sense changes and adapt. Can a baby do that? Absolutely, just as much as we can. So, to conclude, point number 2, babies are in fact living, even if they're unborn. They are alive, and therefore it is murder to kill them. Let's talk about point number 3, the political issues. Abortion essentially has been brought up more because of politics. Like I said about the Roe versus Wade case, Jane Roe did not want an abortion. She wanted a divorce. This attorney took advantage of her to make it a political law that states couldn't outlaw abortion. And for some reason, they succeeded in that, unfortunately. Abortion is not a right, it is a crime. Every human being has a basic human right to live. And yes, that is guaranteed in the Constitution. So if you don't believe that abortion is already unconstitutional, well, there it is. You're denying someone's right to live. That's unconstitutional. It should be illegalized. Okay, let's talk about Bernie Sanders. Okay, Bernie, this part of the video is about you. You once tweeted, "It would be a nice idea for Republicans to read the Constitution of the United States." Well, okay, I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore Republican, as the Republicans are becoming quite left-wing lately, and they're just as cutthroat as many Democrats, especially in the state of Arizona, but I'll get to that in a different video. Bernie Sanders, well, if you understood what the Constitution really said, and you actually truly read it, I think you'd be a bit mistaken about your social welfare programs that you support, and the abortion that you support, and, oh, why don't you share some of that enormous beach house you bought in New Jersey a couple weeks after the election? I mean, just saying. You don't have the right to have that much. It's not fair to the rest of us who don't live on a beach house in New Jersey. And let's talk about what I like to call the Libertarian Party. The Libertarians are not libertarians, to be honest. I'm more of a libertarian than most of the Libertarian Party. Well, okay, why is this? Well, because you have libertarians, the two libertarian nutcases that ran for office back in 2016, Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. Let me talk a little bit about their backgrounds. Well, first of all, Gary Johnson supports abortion. He's pro-choice. He's a feminist. Enough said. Bill Weld, his running mate, actually endorsed Hillary Clinton. Again, enough said. Donald Trump, although I don't respect him as a person, being the fact that he's very immoral, and I'll admit that. Again, I'm not a hardcore Republican. I am a right-wing conservative and a capitalist. But he was the only major candidate in 2016 to be against abortion and Planned Parenthood, and he took a big step towards that by defunding Planned Parenthood. Thank God we don't have to fund an evil organization with our tax dollars anymore. Well, okay, let's talk about this article on ABC News that actually said, during the last 2 election years in national politics, marked by a wave of Tea Party House and Senate gains in 2010, and by President Obama's re-election over Mitt Romney in 2012, Republicans have taken over more state legislatures and governors' mansions across the country, turning some red states redder and flipping some purple states into their column. It's not that abortion bills are new, according to activists on both sides of the issue. It's that the GOP gains in state politics have cleared the way for pro-lifers to advance their agenda. Now, that's kind of a negative connotation there to say, oh, they're advancing their agenda. I mean, that usually sounds like a bad thing. Well, okay, so it just boggles my mind that these news companies will actually, they support this stuff. Why? I mean, how can you be a moral person and support this? I mean, have we declined morally that much here in the United States? Well, apparently we're following in the footsteps of Rome, essentially. So, Yeah, just something to clear up. Abortion, let's go through the points again, is a moral issue. It's selfish and irresponsible. It's a biological issue as well. They are, in fact, living. And it's a political issue. Most politicians don't care about babies to begin with. They're not moral enough to do so anyway. I mean, have you ever met a politician with a moral compass? Very few. They use it to basically advance their own political party. You know, they get the feminists hooked, they get the socialists hooked, and suddenly, you know, they can get into office. All it is it's not about how much they care. It's about how much they want to get into office and control your lives because they're power hungry and they're evil. So, abortion is a political issue just as much as it is a moral issue. The politicians who endorse abortion and Planned Parenthood, they're doing it for votes, not because they care about it. So, just keep these things in mind, and I hope you'll agree. Please like, share, and comment below on this video. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page at Young Constitutionalist Party. And thanks again for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend.